Welcome back to the ABC of EDC with me, Rick Flat, your host through everything, Everyday Carry. Big day today, big day in the studio. Got a lovely watch to look at. It's a watch that's a different tier to other watches pretty much that we've looked at of late. Very excited. Quick note before we do that. If you've not kind of followed us on Instagram, would you run over there and do that? There's a link in the description below. I realise I shoot so much B-roll and so many kind of like shots of watches and different things we review, and they just kind of sit on a hard drive after I kind of thrown that video out, and I really should put more up. So I'm going to make more of an effort with the ABC of EDC Instagram, and also on there it will give you kind of alerts of when a new video is landing and what's coming up and blah blah blah. Just do that. Anyway, back to business. First time that we have a little white box that hides in it a little green box, which is a Rolex box. Interesting. Been looking forward to this for a while. Knew this was coming up, and yeah, I'm kind of excited to kind of open this with you guys and just share the kind of experience. This isn't my watch. I don't know if I'll have a Rolex, if I'd buy one, or if, we'll be interested to see after a review, would I buy one? But this might be my own opportunity to kind of slowly just unbox and enjoy the sensation of what if I had bought this watch, this Rolex Explorer 2. Very excited about it. Anyway, enough blabbling and blobbling and blibbling. Let's go to the overhead camera thing and let's get this Rolex unboxing, first impressions review sorted out. Okay, so here we have it, our first Rolex on the channel. Before we do that, let's do a quick wristwatch check because it's quite kind of relevant to today's review. I am currently wearing the Black Bay Chrono on a NATO. This thing, mate, is something else. And the reason I want to show you this is because obviously Tudor is a sister brand to old Rolly here. So at some point very soon, probably the next video up, well, probably going to do a review of this Tudor, and then we're going to do a little bit of a keep it in the family review, a comparison between Tudor and Rolex, differences and similarities, and you know where they're at as brands right now. So anyway, before we do all that and that's a video for another time. Let's get into this Rolex unboxing. First Rolex on the channel, exciting stuff. So what we got? Basic white box as ever. Just gonna slip this bad boy off, so we just get rid of that out of the way, and that reveals this sort of creamy box with this lovely embossed 5-star Rolex crown. Kind of a nice situation, just kind of classy really. Not a super quality box, not amazing material, but subtle, mate. Just subtle. We're not flexing here. We're just kind of showing kind of a slow and gentle quality. So we take that off and watch out for, are we going to get a posh flap? You know, most posh watch companies, they do the posh flap. Let's see. Yes, bruv, posh flap. So the posh flap drops down. Rolex, another little gold crown there. Got this little bit of cellophane stuff. Take that off to reveal a familiar sight to anyone. If you've seen unboxings before, you've seen the classic green Rolex box. Let's just move this out of the way. And here we have it. Now, I would say, having seen these kind of on various channels as people unbox Rolexes, it's only when you get one in your hand, you realise, bit cheap. They're a bit cheap. I mean, I like them. They're classy. Something about the green and that lovely little, just that little gold Rolex crown on there. It's quality, but yeah, ain't nothing special, man. It really ain't nothing special, and I guess it doesn't really have to be. But you come back, you know, I mean, what's up, man? Like a bit of mahogany wouldn't go amiss. I mean, this watch, if you can get one, is £8,100. I think maybe they could splash out on a different box. I don't know about you, man. It's just how I feel. Anyway, here we are, the Rolex Explorer 2. This is the polar dial. Obviously, you can get this black dial, but this situation right here is my preferred configuration, which is the white dial, the polar. This is the classic. This is the only Explorer 2 for me. Got a little Rolex kind of thing. We always get these on Rolex. They're kind of nice little quality tag. Let's take it off this little thing here. We got some links there. My friend had some links taken out. Another little label, and then just unpop this off. Just take this one off, and we can have a proper look at this Explorer 2. Now, I would say there's a couple more bits in the box. We'll just do that quickly, I reckon, actually. Just put that down gently. So let's just look at the box here. So you've got that little cushion and all that, and then you've got a little flap here which reveals kind of a few bits of my friend's kind of receipt for the watch and their little guarantee card and reference card. I'm not going to show you all that because I don't want to get the numbers wrong. And you get a little booklet, and this again, man, look at that colour, look at that lovely Rolex green there, bit of gold print on it. And it's nice to know this isn't a generic kind of like you buy a Casio, it's the instruction for every Casio you've ever bought. You know, this is exclusive. You can see it's just for the Explorer 2, and just tells you kind of a bit of information about it, a little bit of information about Rolex, blah blah blah. Great little thing to have, little flap there. Anyway, that's enough of the box. Let's get into the actual watch. So here it is. Let's do the basics on this. This is the Rolex Explorer 2, reference 226570. This is 42 mil in diameter. This is 12.5 thick. The case material is oyster steel. So Rolex have all these kind of proprietary materials and techniques. Instead of saying stainless steel, do you know what I mean, or 61L stainless steel, whatever, they have oyster steel. Okay, so it's a white dial, applied markers, some great lume. We'll get into that later. Water resistance was surprising for me. Water resistance is 100 meters. I thought things would be different, man. The bracelet is kind of brushed oyster bracelet. It's great. We'll talk a lot about the bracelet. It's one of my favorite bits of the watch. It's just, you know, effortlessly excellent, I would say. Yep. This movement here is the 3285. 70 hours power reserve, obviously auto, 31 dual. I think it's COSC certified. One thing I would say, and my initial kind of impressions, let me put this on and I'll talk about it while I'm doing it. When I put this watch on, it just felt like one solid block. Even though obviously it's got a moving strap and different parts to it and the clasp, but it just felt to me a very, very solid and well put together watch. And I actually had my friend's Rolex Daytona for a while. He's got a modified Daytona, and that felt the same. It just felt like a solid unit. There's obviously the rattle because there are moving parts, but it doesn't feel chintzy or cheap. It just feels solid. It feels really well bolted together. I can't quite explain it other than to say it just feels like a serious bit of kit. Really does. Super readable, super legible, this watch, man. That's the one other thing when I noticed I put it on, it's something about those really deeply black outlined hands, the classic Mercedes hour hand, and that kind of the black surrounded minute hand, like the sword hand, and then that orange GMT hand, and even actually the second hand, which is very thin but has that sort of lollipop loomed indice about 2/3 up. Set against that polar dial, mate, just snaps. Thing just snaps. The clasp, again, like I say, one of the best things about this watch is just it feels so solid. You're never worried about it coming open. It just feels like you could open and close this thing a million times and it would never weaken or change. Very sterile case back. Rolex are not into kind of doing anything with the case back. Obviously, a couple of watches lately, they have thrown on that display case back, which is, I guess, a nice touch. But generally, the classic Rolex is a kind of nothing case back. The clasp has like a sweaty day. You see, just a sweaty day link in there. It just adds, I don't know, what would you say that adds? I reckon 4 mil, maybe 3 or 4 mil, but it does add just enough to give you kind of that little bit of ease for when your hand does sweat up a little bit. Anyway, I'm waffling here, man. I'm not talking about much. Let me tell you about this. It's got a 24-hour fixed bezel, right? Your GMT hand doesn't travel around 12 hours like some GMTs do. It doesn't have a moving bezel so you can decide on your second time zone. Okay, you decide that, and it allows you to track day and night. So you don't have to be guessing and using a 12-hour bezel and trying to work out what kind of time of day it is, or rather whether it's night or morning. Is it 2 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. in the afternoon? No, you've got a 24-hour GMT bezel, so you can always track that other time zone and know not only the hour, like number time, but the actual time in evening, in the daytime or in the nighttime. It's a great little thing. This is 42 mil. For me, Not too big for me in any way. But you know, if this was 40 or 41, it would just be everything, man. But that 42 for me, just because it's got quite big haunches, just feels just a little big for my preferences. And it's not on my hand, it looks fine. Like, it doesn't look big on me at all. But just for my preferences, mate, I just like just that smidgen off, man. Let's talk about the finishing. It's great. As I look along the brushing, it's just perfect. The lines are just super exact. After opening that rather disappointing Seiko the other week and seeing dust under the dial, I had no fear of the same thing here. It's just clean. Everything well applied, nothing misaligned, just as you'd expect, or as you'd hope an £8,000 watch from Rolex to be. Simple operation, okay? Very, very simple. Does exactly what it says on the tin, and does it with great ease, in my opinion. A real treat of a watch. So, what are some of the cons for me with this watch? There aren't many. I've got to be honest with you, there aren't many. I think for me, probably just two. Just two. And they're entirely personal to me. First one, I would like it to be 40 or 41. I just would. For me, it would just be an out-and-out banger winner instead of being 42 if it was 41 or even 40. Perfect. I don't mind the width. I think it's fine. It's not very slab-sided. I think sometimes the Tudor, if we compare the Tudor to the Rolex here, the Tudor's very, or rather much more slab-sided. But this is a lovely width, man. That 12.5 is perfect. But it's just that diameter of the dial. I would just have it 41 or 40. The other thing, and this is just a watch nerd thing, I guess, or rather not a watch nerd thing, a cheap watch nerd thing. This thing is £8,000. And for me, this is a tall watch. This is to be used in harsh situations, man. It's got a polar dial, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're going polar play, we're going places that are cold, right? It's got that kind of, you know, real like that Rolex stainless steel, or, you know, oyster steel, whatever it is, that kind of, you know, real smash it up and take it anywhere kind of look. But I don't know if I want to do that to it, because this is an £8,000 watch. And again, that to me, I think that's probably just a personal thing, right? It's probably just me not having that sort of money free, not having that sort of money go through my hand to be able to place on a watch. And that if I did, it would be an important amount of money, and I would not feel confident if I bash this on the door jamb and all that. I guess if I had stacks of cash, I wouldn't care. But for me, like, £8,000 is a lot of money, and this thing looks lovely. And I imagine it might look even better once it's beaten up. But would I beat it up? I don't know, man. I really don't know. It's interesting. There is a lot of technology in this watch, a lot of Rolex. If you read their kind of website, it talks about a chronology escapement. It talks about the blue parachrome balance spring, the Paraflex shock absorbers, you know, all that sort of stuff. But essentially, you're going to stick this on your wrist, and it's very simple. It's not a chronograph. It's not an annual calendar, perpetual calendar. It ain't none of that stuff. It ain't split second. It ain't tourbillon. Ain't nothing fancy. It's just GMT, man. You're reading it to read the time you're in and the time you're not in. And I like the simplicity of it. But for me, I think I would be a little bit scared of bashing it. I just would. And maybe that's just me. And maybe that's an unfair thing to put on this watch. If this watch was £300, I wouldn't care. I would bash the shit out of this watch. I would wear this day in, day out. I'd swim with it. I'd climb with it. I'd jump with it. I'd fight with it. I'd whatever, man, cook with it. Whatever, man, do forest stuff with it. I would just smash the hell out of it. But it's £8,000. I'm going to babysit this thing, man. You know what I mean? I'm going to be careful with it. Cyclops. How are we feeling about that Cyclops, man? I don't know, man. Cyclops, it splits the room, right? There's something about classic Rolex. Rolex seem to be able to get away with Cyclops where other people wouldn't. But if it had never been on this watch, or I'd never seen it with this, I think it might look a bit cleaner. I think it might look a little bit more usable. How about a no date? Explorer 2? mate, that'd have my money. I'm into no date. I love no date subs. I'm not a big fan of the date on some watches, especially Thule watches, man. Just want it simple. Anyway, I can't say much more than this. Great watch. I love the finishing, the brushed, the polishing. I love the clasp. I love that dial. I love the pop of orange. Mate, it's a beautiful thing. I've got to tell you, it's a beautiful thing. If you've got the money, it's a good flex to have, man. If you can do it, if you can get one of these bad boys on your wrist, why wouldn't you, mate? It's sporty. It's great looking. It's a great summer watch. It's fresh, man, with that white dial and that orange pop and the black hands. Mate, gangster. Why wouldn't you? So in conclusion, there is so much to love about this watch. The dial, the finishing, that feeling of heft and quality. There are a few things I'd question, but they're just personal. The size, the Cyclops, and the cost. But when it comes down to it, I think this is a great watch for what it is. For the kind of people who can spend £8 on a tool watch, I think this is one of the best. But for me, I can't ever see me sort of get into that heights of cash and expenditure for a tool watch. I'd rather spend no more than 300 quid and really be able to smash up my watch. It's kind of like someone who buys like a top of the range Range Rover. That thing is super capable, can deal with gravel and snow and sand, does hill descent, will never let you down, but it will never ever be driven anywhere but like just tarmac streets. You know what I mean? You know these Range Rover drivers, man. They won't even go up a curb to let you buy, just because they're scared, because they spent 150 grand on a Range Rover that often breaks down as well. But that's a separate thing. So yeah, I'm kind of torn between this being a fantastic tool watch and it being just a over expensive tool, and therefore one that you would baby. Maybe that's just me. Anyway, first Rolex on the channel. I have loved this. I can't wait now to look at the Tudor. We'll be doing that pretty soon. And then we'll do a little comparison, a little keep it in the family review. Anyway, this has been the ABC of EDC. This has been the Rolex Explorer 2. And I'm Rick Flatt, your host through everything, everyday carry. Carry what you love. And I'll see you next time. Later.